breathe a little easier. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done. You're listening to WCBS 880 Magazine.
We know a lot of you out there follow every word we say very closely, so we have a responsibility to get it right. But there's probably no one who follows WCBS 880 more closely than this guy. In fact, last October, when I got the name of a Yankees announcer wrong during a piece I did on Don Larson's Perfect Game, the right answer went up on Twitter about 5 minutes later. Mea culpa. Welcome to the program, Keith Olbermann.
Thanks for having me, Anita. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances.
You're a native New Yorker. You've been on the air everywhere. I can't believe this is only your second time live on WCBS 880.
I was turned down for a job in 1980. I did not get a job as a sportscaster, the drive time sportscasting job that went to Bill Schweitzer. It turned out to have been for a very good and complimentary reason, but I've just gotten over the idea that I was not hired by WCBS, which, of course, like everybody else from the Bronx and Westchester, which are my haunts, I grew up listening to. And this is, to me, this last week and a half has been like they said they're going to take the Brooklyn Bridge down. It makes no sense, and it can benefit nobody in the city, and I don't care if they're all alternate routes to take.
Can you share some of your memories of this station?
I think I was just thinking about this as I was writing my podcast, that every idea I have about what news sounds like or should sound like, from news noises and music to pacing to how many sound bites to how often you should repeat a number if you're saying it on the air. Everything I know about doing news, maybe the visuals come from other sources, but the audio, that's from listening to WCBS, particularly in high school. I just figured out I've been listening for 50 years. And so I've heard everybody. And I had tremendous experiences with people over the years who have worked there and who I've met in later contexts. And my memory of it is there was an authenticity and a professionalism at all times that really made me wonder, particularly when I was a kid, whether or not I should be taking notes on how to do it. And everybody involved in it, from the people that I listened to as a kid. I have tapes, and then one of the first moments of authenticity in my career when I worked for UPI Radio in 1979 was the first time that WCBS ran one of my pieces, and it was Bill Fahan doing the overnight sportscast as part of the overnight news shift, and he said, "Keith Olbermann has more," and I went, "I exist."
It's like validation the first time you hear yourself on the station that you grew up listening to. You have a very particular connection to one of WCBS 880's former news directors. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, this is to me still a startling event, and it occurred in April of 1979. As I was getting out of Cornell, I was trying to get a job, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to limit myself to small markets. I am going to try the big city stations and see if any of them say yes, because I thought, well, look, it's not my job to say I'm not good enough to work at WCBS. It's Lou Adler's job, and I've been listening to Lou since, as I said, I was in high school. And so I sent him a tape, and I sent a tape to every news director in this city and in Boston and Philadelphia and Washington. And the only one who wrote back was Lou Adler. And I got the letter after a tortuous 8-hour drive back to Ithaca, New York in a snowstorm, after my friend George's father had taken the snow tires off the car, and we barely made it back to Ithaca. And there, sitting in the middle of the night, was this letter with the WCBS Classic return address and Lou Adler's name at the top. And I thought, this is wonderful. He sent me a form letter rejecting my tape. It was that idea was just enough for me that I was going to frame the form letter. Then I opened the letter, and I can still feel how cold it was. I remember everything about that moment and the next couple of days, because it was not a rejection letter. It was a letter in which Lou Adler encouraged me to pursue broadcasting and invited me to come in and meet him at Black Rock. And he did, in fact, give me that last little impetus to get my career started. And the letter sits on my wall, framed near the front door, so that in the event of an emergency, I can get it out. It is one of my most prized possessions.
And what happened when you came to visit him at Black Rock?
What I remember of it is, because I did have the appropriate out-of-body experiences, He said, I have no doubt that you are going to succeed in this business. And he introduced me to Ed Ingles, who, of course, was the legendary sportscaster and later became a very good friend of mine, who I would see all the time and always joked about this. He took me on a tour of the newsroom. He took me on a tour. He introduced me to Ed, and Ed said, oh, you're the guy from Cornell. So, Lou, did you hire him? Am I out of a job? And, I mean, they could not have been more supportive and more helpful to me and more encouraging. And again, the idea of being validated by professionals. And also, even then, I thought this is how I should treat people who are trying to get into this business.
Keith Olbermann, host of the extremely popular podcast Countdown with Keith Olbermann, available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm so glad you were able to join us.
I'm so glad you asked, Anita. Thank you.
WCBS 880 Magazine.